Last week, I was helping my parents clean out their attic when I stumbled across a secret that's been buried for 28 years. Today, I'm sitting here wondering if some truths are too dangerous to reveal. My name is Alex, I'm 27 years old, and until 7 days ago, I thought I knew exactly who I was. I was Alex Patterson, son of Robert and Sarah Patterson, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Dad's an accountant, Mom's a nurse, and I inherited Dad's analytical mind and Mom's compassionate heart. Or so I believed. The discovery happened by accident. Mom had asked me to help sort through decades of accumulated junk in the attic before they downsized to a smaller house. Most of it was the usual stuff: old Christmas decorations, my childhood toys, boxes of photos nobody ever looked at. Then I found the shoebox. It was wedged behind an old trunk, covered in dust like it hadn't been touched in years. No label, just a plain brown shoebox that felt heavier than it should have. When I opened it, I expected to find more forgotten family photos. Instead, I found 23 love letters that changed everything. They were tied with a faded blue ribbon, and the top envelope was addressed to "My dearest Sarah" in handwriting I didn't recognize. The return address said James Morrison, Seattle, Washington. I'd never heard of anyone named James Morrison in my family. I should have put the box back. Should have respected my parents' privacy. But something about those letters called to me, and I opened the first one. My darling Sarah. I can't stop thinking about our weekend together. When you told me about Robert, I knew I should walk away, but I can't. What we have is too real, too powerful to ignore. I know you feel it too. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. If you'll have me, I'll wait for you to figure out what you want. But please don't take too long. Every day without you feels like a lifetime. Forever yours, James. P.S. I've enclosed the concert tickets for next month. Say you'll come with me. Asterisk. The letter was dated March 15, 1995. I was born in December 1995. My hands shook as I opened the second letter, dated a month later. Sarah. I understand why you can't leave Robert right now, but we need to talk about the baby. I have a right to know if it's mine. The timing, we both know the timing makes it possible. I'm not asking you to choose me over your marriage, but I am asking you not to shut me out completely. This child could be my only chance at being a father. I love you both already. James asterisk. I sat in that dusty attic reading letter after letter, watching the story unfold. James Morrison had been my mother's co-worker at the hospital where she worked as a young nurse. Their affair lasted 6 months. When Mom discovered she was pregnant, she wasn't sure who the father was. The final letter in the box was the most devastating. My dearest Sarah. I accept your decision, even though it breaks my heart. You're right that Robert will be a wonderful father, and you're right that telling him about us would destroy more lives than it would save. I'm moving to Seattle to give you the space you need to build your family. But I need you to know that I will always wonder about that little boy. If he's mine, I hope someday he'll understand why his father had to love him from a distance. Take care of yourself, and take care of our son. Because in my heart, he'll always be our son, regardless of biology. All my love, always. James. P.S. I've set up a savings account in his name. The details are enclosed. Even if I can't be his father, I can still provide for him somehow. Asterisk. Attached to the last letter was a bank account number and routing information. An account that had been accumulating interest for 27 years under the name Alex Morrison Patterson. I climbed down from that attic feeling like a stranger in my own life. Everything I thought I knew about myself, my family, my identity, it was all built on a lie. That night, I couldn't eat dinner. Couldn't make small talk with Dad about work. Couldn't look at Mom without seeing the secret she'd been carrying for almost 3 decades. When Dad ruffled my hair and said, "You look just like I did at your age," I wanted to scream. I waited 3 days before confronting Mom. I chose a Tuesday afternoon when Dad was at work, and I brought the shoebox with me. Mom, we need to talk. She was folding laundry in the living room when I set the box on the coffee table. The moment she saw it, all the color drained from her face. "Alex, where did you find that?" "In the attic. Behind the trunk." I opened the box and pulled out the letters. "Mom, is James Morrison my biological father?" She collapsed into the chair like someone had cut her strings. For a long moment, she just stared at the letters, tears streaming down her face. "I never meant for you to find those," she whispered. "I should have thrown them away years ago, but I couldn't." "Is he my father?" She nodded, not looking at me. "I think so. The timing, it's very likely." The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. "Does Dad know?" "No." Her voice was barely audible. "He has no idea. When I found out I was pregnant, I calculated the dates, and it could have been either of them. I chose to believe it was your father's because that's what I needed to believe." "What about James? Does he know for sure?" Mom shook her head. "I told him I was ending things and that the baby was Robert's. He moved to Seattle shortly after you were born. We never spoke again." I paced the living room, trying to process this information. "Mom, there's a bank account. James set up a college fund for me. It's probably worth hundreds of thousands of dollars by now." She looked up sharply. "What?" "He's been saving money for me for 27 years, Mom. Money that legally belongs to me." I pulled out my phone. I could call the bank right now and claim it. "Alex, please don't do anything hasty. If you claim that money, it could raise questions. Questions that deserve answers." I shouted, then immediately felt guilty for raising my voice. "Mom, I have a right to know who my biological father is. I have a right to meet him if he's still alive. And what about your dad? What about Robert? He loves you more than anything in this world. You're his son in every way that matters. Would you really destroy him to satisfy your curiosity?" That stopped me cold. Dad had coached my little league teams, taught me to drive, walked me through my first heartbreak, paid for my college education. He'd been there for every moment of my life that mattered. The idea of telling him that none of it was real made me sick. But the idea of living with this secret forever felt just as impossible. That night, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I looked up James Morrison online. He wasn't hard to find. James Morrison, now 58, was a successful emergency room physician in Seattle. He'd never married, had no children. His LinkedIn profile showed a distinguished career, volunteer work with children's hospitals, a life that looked full but somehow lonely. There were photos of him at medical conferences, charity events, hiking in the mountains. And looking at his face was like looking into a funhouse mirror of my own future. Same nose, same jawline, same eyes. The resemblance was undeniable. I spent hours scrolling through his social media, looking for clues about the man who might be my father. He posted about his patients, anonymously, his hiking adventures, his volunteer work. He seemed kind, intelligent, dedicated to helping others. Not the selfish homewrecker I'd imagined. In one post from last year, he'd written, "Another Father's Day spent wondering about paths not taken. Grateful for the young doctors I get to mentor, who feel like the children I never had." That post broke something inside me. I found his hospital's phone number and stared at it for an hour before chickening out. What would I even say? "Hi, you don't know me, but I think you might be my father based on some letters you wrote to my mom 28 years ago?" The next few days were torture. I couldn't concentrate at work, couldn't sleep, couldn't have a normal conversation with my parents. Every time Dad smiled at me or made a joke, I felt like I was betraying him. Every time Mom asked if I was okay, I wanted to scream. Finally, I made a decision that surprised even me. I drove to Seattle. I didn't call ahead, didn't make an appointment. I just showed up at Seattle General Hospital and asked to speak with Dr. James Morrison. The receptionist told me he was in surgery but would be available in a few hours. I waited in the hospital cafeteria for 4 hours, rehearsing what I would say. When he finally appeared, walking across the cafeteria in scrubs with a tired smile for the staff who greeted him, my heart nearly stopped. It was like looking at an older version of myself. "Dr. Morrison?" He turned, and I watched his face change as he took in my features. His coffee cup slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. "My God," he whispered. "You look just like. My mother is Sarah Patterson. She used to be Sarah Mitchell." He sat down heavily in the nearest chair. "You're Alex. You know my name? I've wondered about you every day for 27 years. His voice was shaky. "How is she? How are you? Are you happy?" We talked for 2 hours in that hospital cafeteria. He told me about the 6 months he and Mom had together, how he'd fallen completely in love with her but understood why she couldn't leave her marriage. He told me about moving to Seattle, about the bank account he'd maintained in case I ever needed it, about the Father's Days he'd spent wondering about me. "I have to ask," I said finally. "Do you want a DNA test?" He smiled sadly. "Son, I knew the moment I saw you walk across this room. You have your mother's compassion in your eyes, but everything else, you're my boy. What do I do now? My dad, Robert, he doesn't know. It would destroy him." James was quiet for a long time. "Alex, I gave up my right to make decisions about your life when I let your mother go 28 years ago. Robert Patterson raised you, loved you, shaped you into the man you are today. Biology doesn't erase that. But you're my father too. I'm the man who contributed half your DNA. Robert is your father in every way that actually matters. We exchanged phone numbers and email addresses. James insisted I take the information for the bank account. It was worth $340,000 with interest. He also gave me his medical history, in case I ever needed it. Can I stay in touch?" I asked as we prepared to part ways. "I would love nothing more," he said. "But Alex, think carefully about what that means for your family. Some secrets exist to protect people we love." The drive back to Columbus was the longest 5 hours of my life. I'd been home for 3 days now, and I still don't know what to do. James and I have exchanged a few texts, nothing deep, just checking in. He sent me a photo of himself hiking, and I sent him one from my graduation that he'd missed. But every time I look at Dad, I feel like I'm living a lie. And every time I think about telling him the truth, I imagine his heart breaking. Mom knows I met James. She's been walking around like she's waiting for a bomb to explode. Dad keeps asking if everything's okay, if there's something wrong with our family. The worst part is that meeting James didn't give me the closure I thought it would. He's a good man, a man I could see myself being proud to call a father. But he was right. Robert Patterson is my dad in every way that matters. James is just the stranger whose genetics I inherited. But now I have to decide, do I tell Dad the truth and risk destroying his world to ease my own guilt? Do I keep this secret and build a quiet relationship with James behind everyone's back? Do I cut contact with James entirely to protect my family? There's $340,000 sitting in a bank account with my name on it. Money that could pay off my student loans, help me buy a house, secure my future. But claiming it feels like admitting that Robert isn't really my father. I'm also wondering about James, alone in Seattle, spending Father's Days wondering about the son he gave up. Does he deserve a chance to know me? Does he deserve to have his 28 years of wondering finally answered? And what about me? Do I have a right to know my biological father, even if it means hurting the man who raised me? Do I have an obligation to keep this secret to protect my family, even if it means lying to everyone I love for the rest of my life? Last night, Dad helped me fix my car. We spent 2 hours in the garage, talking about work and life while we changed the oil. He was so patient, explaining everything, proud when I got it right. At one point, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "I'm glad we can still do these father-son projects together." I almost broke down right there. I keep thinking about what James said, that some secrets exist to protect people we love. But what about the people those secrets hurt? What about the biological fathers who never get to know their children? What about the children who grow up never knowing half their medical history, half their heritage? The letters are hidden in my apartment now, along with James's contact information and the bank account details. Every day, I have to decide again whether to keep this secret or blow up my family's entire foundation. Some days I think the truth always deserves to come out. Other days I think some truths are too dangerous to tell. What would you do if you discovered that your entire identity was built on a secret your mother kept for 28 years? Would you tell the man who raised you that he might not be your biological father? Would you pursue a relationship with your real father, even if it meant living a double life? And do children have a right to know their biological parents, even when that knowledge could destroy the families that raised them? How do you choose between the father who gave you life and the father who gave you everything else?